Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll start with the attendance. When you are giving the attendance, just unmute and say your roll number. 18. Roll number 1.
Roll number 2 present, sir.
Okay. Next. 3.
4 present, sir.
5 present, sir.
5. Continue.
Present, sir.
6.
Present,
7.
sir.
Okay.
Present, sir.
Say your roll number. 8 is there.
Sir, 8.
Okay. Next. 9. 10.
11.
12.
13. 14.
15,
16.
17,
18,
19.
20, 21,
22.
23,
24.
25,
26.
27,
28,
29.
30.
31. 32.
31.
31 is there, right? 32.
33.
35.
36,
37, 37,
37 I got it. 38 is there, right?
39.
40.
41,
42.
43,
44,
45,
46. 47.
48,
49.
50.
51.
52.
53,
54.
55.
56.
57.
56,
57.
58,
59,
60.
61.
62.
63. 64.
65.
66.
67.
68.
69.
70
70.
present, sir. 70 present, sir.
Okay. 71.
72.
73,
73.
73, sir.
74.
Yes, sir.
75.
76,
Anybody has missed?
Roll number 9 present.
Roll number 9.
Roll number 3.
Roll number 3.
69.
69.
73.
70. 72 is there. Yeah, already. 60 I saw. 73. 73 is fine. 60 is fine. 46. 46. 31. 31 is fine. We have total 65. Some are already left, I think. Maybe they are disconnected. That is fine. All right. So we'll start with today's class. And in the previous class, we looked into scientific approach for management. When it started, the management part has started. Then the scientific approach was taken, and father of scientific approach of management is called as a Frederick Taylor. Okay, so after Frederick Taylor, there were many people like who got inspired, because Frederick, even though there were limitations, there were very good practices and processes he identified. Basically, the goal was to increase the production. And later, many management practitioners they came up with many different ideas. And the next idea was the administrative management. So Gantt chart, we looked into this last class. Okay. So early after the scientific approach, Frank and Lillian Gilbreth made motion and fatigue study as their life work. So they worked on the motion and study. Motion and study was proposed by the Taylor. So motion and fatigue. Fatigue is basically like when you are doing a certain kind of work, like you enter a stage where you are no more like adding anything, like that is the stage when it reaches. So they made that their work on mostly on motion and fatigue study. Using motion picture cameras, Frank Gilbreth tried to find most economical motion for bricklaying. So he used the motion picture cameras and to make the motions more economical. So when we make motions more economical, productivity will increase. So he tried for the bricklaying. He classified all movements employed in industrial work into 17 basic types. So he studied all the kinds of movements which are in the mostly used in the industries, and he classified them into 17 basic types, and he called them as a Terbliks, and provided a shorthand symbol so that analysts would easily and quickly jot down each motion as he observed the worker in action. So he came up with the idea of classifying the motions, the movements, and he categorized them into 17 basic types, and he gave them a certain kind of a shorthand symbol. So to do certain job, he will add those symbols, okay, which are the motions required, so that whoever is observing the workers, they can easily find out whether that particular worker is following those symbols or not. So the why following those symbols are the most economical motions. According to Gilbrecht's motion and fatigue studies raised workers' morale. It raised workers' morale because he considered the fatigue part of the motion, because whenever a motion is involved, the physical fatigue is the point where they will feel very much stressed. Okay, so because he considered their the pain, the kind of a pain they will go through, the workers they felt very good because the fatigue was taken into consideration, so that his economical motions tried to reduce the fatigue. Okay? So automatically workers morale increased because they thought like management is concerned about their fatigue, right, their problems, because it increased physical benefits, but also they demonstrated management's concern for the workers. So this is the reason for boosting the morale of the workers. So it demonstrated management's concern for the workers. So always the workers they feel good when management is taking care of their problems. Contributions and limitations of scientific management. So scientific management, the one which was proposed by the Taylor, it contributed in many ways. Also, it had some limitations. Okay, and as I told you, management is it's a behavioral science. It's a science. It's more related to behavior, and the context will keep on changing. The situations that were there before, like say like 100 years, okay, and now the situations are very different, the challenges are very different. So some of these things will at that point it might be have worked very well. So during the changes or the changes in the or the evolution of industries, things will keep on changing, and some were like yeah, when it started it was a beneficial, and later it was not beneficial, then later it turned out to be a limitation. So similarly in Taylor's approach also there are many advantages and limitations. The time and motion studies have made us aware that the tools and physical movements involved in a task can be made more efficient and rational. So if you remember, when the Taylor started, his biggest challenge was how much work will be required to accomplish certain job. It was like ad hoc basis. It was based on whatever the estimate the worker come up with. Like let's say worker says like it will take 3 days, then it's like it is dependent completely on the worker. And I told you like they had a fear, the workers had a fear that if the production increases, the piece rate will reduce, the amount of money they will get will reduce. That was their fear. So they used to control the production, so they will keep it to 1/3 of the production. With his time and motion studies, Taylor could be able to come up with the exact amount of time, how much time roughly a certain job will take. So that was the biggest advantage. The stress which scientific management placed on scientific selection of workers has made us recognize that without ability and training, a person cannot be expected to do his job properly. So one more thing was scientific selection. That was the one key feature of scientific management. With scientific selection, they could be able to get the workers or the resources who had the knowledge, and also they could be they trained or for doing particular job. They trained all those workers. That resulted in increased productivity. The importance that scientific management gave to work design has encouraged manager to seek that one best way of doing a job. So earlier the worker used to do all the planning, design, and how to do it. Just the foreman will tell what to be done. Okay, how it should be done, he never used to, like, that was the part of the workers. Then he split that two pieces, that is planning and doing. Worker was just involved in doing, and the planning, design, everything was moved to the managers. So the managers started coming with the way certain job can be done in the best possible way, right? If certain job is there, he will find out the ways, the best ways that can be done with a minimal effort. Contributions and both blue collar production jobs and white collar office and service jobs have become specialized and standardized. So blue collar in the sense like the workers who work on the actual the job, like physical job, hands-on job, and the white collar is like the foreman, whoever is managing those jobs. Those are called white collar, and the workers, they are called as blue collar jobs, have become specialized and standardized. So they became very specialized in the sense they got the domain knowledge. They were if a certain person is able to design, let's say like a gearbox, is very specialized. That particular person is very specialized in planning and designing, and that particular worker will be specialized in making it. So exactly we will know how to make it and efficiently and with the best quality. That is how the specialization and standardization has increased. This makes workers more efficient and the management's control over them easier. So we know because certain job is it is well defined and it is standardized. Means standardized in the sense certain kind of a job will take this much hours of effort, and so managers were very well aware of how much time it will take. So they got a better control over the workers. Taylor's scientific management approach has evolved into a what now generally called as a job engineering. So I told you, even this kind of approach is still it is used on the floor. Okay, the floor of the manufacturing companies. Still, this kind of a practices is used. There is a foreman. He does all the planning in the design aspect, and the workers are focused on creating the job. They work on the doing part. This is concerned with the product, process, tool design, plant layout, standard operating procedure, work measurements, and standards and work methods and human-machine interactions. So the Taylor scientific approach, it is concerned with all these things: the processes, the design, plant layout, standard operating procedure. So it involves everything, and it brings in a, as I said, specialization and the standardization. On the other hand, there were certain limitations of the scientific management. So severely it was criticized on the following grounds. Number one, Taylor's scientific management emphasizes the management of only muscular tasks at the floor level and neglects the area of problem solving and decision making. So predominantly, if you, I told you earlier, when these management processes came out during that time, it was more restricted to the production. Like it is more restricted to the factory structure, okay, factory and the manufacturing structure. So this only focused, the Taylor scientific management, it focused more on the muscular task, means how certain process can be done in what way. So that was the most important aspect of the management. It neglected the other areas of problem solving and decision making. So they were not involved in any kind of a problem solving. Let us say there is any problem, and workers will not be in a authorized way to solve that particular problem or make any decision on that particular aspects. Taylor's belief that economic incentives are strong enough to motivate the workers for increased production is wrong. I told you, like Taylor started with the economic incentives. So based on he defined the standard, and whoever produced the number of units more than the standard, they will get a higher piece rate, and those who produce lesser than the standard will get the lesser piece rate. So he thought this is the most effective way. But however, economic incentives are not the only motivators, or it may not motivate all the workers, right? There might be certain workers, they will not really get motivated by the economic incentives. So his perception of giving economic incentives is productive for everybody, it seems to be incorrect later. Okay, so the workers had other needs such as security, job security, social needs, and egoistic needs. There are other needs along with the economical needs that should be satisfied. Taylor's time and motion study is not entirely scientific. Two separate individuals may time the same job entirely differently. There is no such thing as one best way so far as the component motions are concerned, because individuals can't work in the same way at the same rhythm with the same attention and same learning speed. So when I was talking about this, some of you must have already got the doubt how two people can exactly do the same work in exactly the same way. That was the limitation. It is not possible because everybody's rhythm is different, their learning speed is different, their motions are different, and we cannot have just one way and it can be done by all the individuals. Okay, because two separate individuals, they will do the same job in two different ways, right? And producing the same output. So that was the one of the biggest limitations of the Taylor scientific management. Separation of planning and doing and the greater specialization inherent in the system tend to reduce the need for skill and produce greater monotony of work. Having a man take orders from 7 to 8 different bosses results in a confusion besides increasing the overhead cost. Okay, so when Taylor thought about separating the planning and doing, so he created number of specializations. Let us say in certain factory there are 10 different specialization is required, so he will have 10 foremen, okay, who will be specialized in planning those, and the workers will be doing the doing part. Okay, in these two, workers will be focused on the doing part. What had happened was, one is it reduced the skill, okay, for the workers, and second problem is since there are like 10 different foremen having 10 different specialized knowledge, a worker in some cases he has to take orders from 7 to 8 different bosses. Okay, taking order from 7 to 8 different bosses, it is like practically it is very impossible to work. So it created a lot of confusion, and also having so many different specialization, it created the additional cost. Okay, so we had the overhead cost. Advances in methods and better tools and machines eliminated some workers who found it difficult to get other job. This caused the resentment among them. So when these certain jobs which were done by the workers, there were machinery or better tools that were created. That is how some of the workers, they lost the job. And because those workers, they worked on only that kind of a job for a predominantly long time, they were not skillful enough to get other jobs. So that caused the resentment among all the workers. So that was the scientific management, and later, there were many management practitioners. They took the input from they went through the scientific management theory, and they came up with improvements, changes, a lot of additions, and one among them is Henry Fayol. Okay, he is considered as the father of administrative management. While Taylor is considered as a father of scientific management, Henry Fayol is considered as the father of administrative management theory. So Henry Fayol came up with the administrative management theory, and here administration is in the more sense what is today's management. Okay, the way we use the term management in nowadays, like it's a very broader perspective. He used this administrative word in that broader aspect. Okay, with focus on development of broad administrative principles applicable to general and higher managerial levels. So what he proposed was this administrative management, which is applicable to everybody, like in general to all the levels of management. He was a French mining engineer turned a leading industrialist and successful manager. He wrote a monograph in French in 1916 entitled General and Industrial Administration. So he was working as a mining engineer, and later he turned into an industrialist. He wrote a book on his thought of administrative management. The book's name is General and Industrial Administration. So this book, originally it was written in French, and then later it was converted into English. Okay, translated into English. When it was translated into English, he became really, his theory was known to the whole world. When it was in French, many people didn't know about his work. Fayol provided a broad analytical framework of the process of administration. So he provided a broad analytical framework, okay, which involved in the administration. He used the word administration for what we call management. Okay, his word usage of administration is like a broader aspect. What we call the management today, it is used in that sense. His perspective, unlike that of Taylor's, extended beyond the shop level and the physical production process, was of a macro nature, covering the general administrative and managerial functions and processes at the organization level. So the Taylor, I told you, when Taylor started with his management theory, he started with a very focus to like a shop level or a factory level, and his processes were very limited to that kind of a structure. And what Fayol proposed was it was more generic, and it was related to the organization. Okay, organization of different types and different levels. Fayol, what he did was he divided all his activities, okay, of business and enterprise into 6 groups. So first one is a technical, then commercial, financial, accounting, security, and administrative or managerial. So he divided all the activities into these categories, and his focus was more on what was called as administrative or managerial. Fayol's primary focus of course was on this last managerial activity or the administrative activity. Skills had been the most neglected aspects of the business operations, because he knew other than all these things, the administrative and the managerial skills were most neglected in the organization, and he felt those are the ones which are most important. He defined management in terms of 5 functions. So he is the one who came up with the idea of the functions, okay, management functions. Initially, he created these 5: planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. So we looked into these management functions earlier. Okay, these things, if you see, it is very closely related to that, like whatever we discussed, which is more evolved as of today. When he started these functions, which eventually led to the more fine-tuned managerial functions. Many management theorists and even practitioners have found this classification very useful and realistic. So already we discussed about at least some of this, like we discussed about planning, organizing and controlling. These were very, very useful. Okay, and all organization and practitioners, they felt these are very useful identification of the different processes. Further, the process of management as a series of functions originated with Fayol. So he is the originator of that thought of management functions. He emphasized repeatedly that this process is the same at every level of an organization and is common to all types of organization. We already discussed about this. These functions are applicable to everywhere, and these functions are some of the management practitioners. We talked about this. They went to many countries to study the management, and they found that management practices are exactly the same. They don't even depend on the culture. Okay, with the culture there would be a little bit changes in how it is implemented, but overall the management process predominantly it will remains the same. And Fayol also presented 14 principles of the management as general guides to the management process and management practice. So he proposed 14 principles, and these management principles that can be accommodated into organization as a administrative tools. So we'll look into them one by one. First one is he proposed the division of work. In the management process produces more and better work with the same effort. Various functions of management like planning, organizing, directing, controlling cannot be performed efficiently by a single proprietor or by a group of directors. They must be entrusted to specialists and related fields. Excuse me. So division of work is whatever the work that is there, it should be divided, and we should have different people looking into different aspects of this work. It will create more specialization, and it will increase the productivity for any organization. So division of work, it is his proposal. Later there were some issues with the division of work also. We see this division of work very similar to the Taylor's proposal of separating planning and doing, where in the planning he made specializations, and many specializations. For each of the specialization there is going to be a foreman, and that created a problem of the reporting. So whenever there is a reporting problem, then there will be a lot of confusion and a lot of chaos will be there. Authority and responsibility. As the management consists of getting the work done through others, it implies that the manager should have the right to give orders and power to exact obedience. As a manager may exercise formal authority, also personal power. So one of the things he emphasized was the authority and responsibility for the management for the managers. Okay, authority should be given to all the managers in order to get the work done. Okay, and also there is a that is a formal way of giving authority. There is an informal way of authority to get the work done by his influence, okay, his leadership qualities. So every person should be given with the authority and responsibility. So responsibility is what if certain work has to be done, what authority that particular manager will have, and what is his responsibility. So what he has to accomplish and what he is responsible for, that should be clearly defined. Discipline, okay, is absolutely essential for the smooth running of business. By discipline, we mean the obedience to authority, observance of the rules of service and norms of performance, respect for agreements, sincere efforts for completing the given job, respect for superiors, etc. The best means of maintaining disciplines are good supervisors at all levels, clear and fair agreements between the employees and the employer, judicious application of penalties. In fact, discipline is what leaders make it. So discipline is one of the important thing, even though it was inherent, but he put it in a very specific word. What he meant by discipline is following the rules, regulations, okay, respecting the order, okay, respecting the authority, okay, and also if there is any problem, first thing is all the agreements, whatever the rules regulations that are there, it should be very judicious, okay. And second one is like whenever there is a breach of any of these rules, even though the penalty should be there, but the penalty should be very judicious. And who can bring in this discipline? The discipline can be brought in by the leaders and or the all the managers at different levels. They can by following all those rules and regulations, they can become a role model for others to follow the certain thing. And when we have the discipline, it has its own benefits. Unity of command. What is the unity of command? This principle requires that each employee should receive instruction about a particular work from one superior only. That is a unity of command. Unity is like we will have only one command. Every worker should get the instructions from only one superior. Okay, this is just to avoid the situation what the in case of a file, in case of a tailor who had multiple specialization, the orders used to come from different managers or the different foremans. That will create a lot of problems. Fayal believed that if an employee was to report to more than one superior, he would be confused due to conflict in instruction, and also it would be difficult to pinpoint responsibility to him. Okay, so you understand, like if you are being instructed by like 3 4 people, so there would be a lot of confusion for you, and you will be getting instruction from 4 5 people. The kind of work you are doing, it is very difficult to hold you responsible for that because you are getting instruction from many others. Then second one was one is unity of command. You will get instruction from the single superior. And unity of direction. What is the unity of direction? It means that there should be a complete identity between individual and organization goals on the one hand, and the between department and organization. They should not pull in different directions. Okay. What is unity of direction is whatever the direction that organization is following, right? The same should be applicable to the individual as well as the department. Whatever the direction that management or the organization is driving in, every thing should be aligned. Organization goals, department goals, and the individual goals should be aligned in the same direction. For example, like if organization's immediate goal is to improve the sales, the department and the individual should be tuned in the same direction so that they work together for the same goal of increasing the sales. Subordination of individual interest to general interest. Okay, in a business concern, an individual is always interested in maximizing his own satisfaction through more money, recognition, status, etc. This is very often against the general interest, which lies in the maximizing production, as the need to subordinate the individual interest to general interest. So this goes more like a unity in direction. Subordinations. One second. Okay, so individual interest. So individual interest should be subordinated by the general interest. So whenever there is a individual interest, also the it should be aligned with the general interest. So that is when we get the more results, when we have the individual interest is more aligned with the general interest. Remuneration. Okay. Remuneration paid to the personnel of the firm should be fair. It should be based on general business condition, cost of living, productivity of the concerned employees, and the capacity of the firm to pay. Fair remuneration increases workers' efficiency and morale and fosters a good relation between them and the management. So this is a very good thing he proposed. Even in today, the remuneration is more or less it is followed based on this. First is the general business conditions. General business conditions is like automobile industry, then financial industry, IT industry. Okay, the general conditions are different. Okay, the pay scales is different in all these things, isn't it? Like normally the IT, the payments are much more because the kind of business, the kind of intellectual work that happens is paid, is highly paid. So that is the reason it says general business conditions. Cost of living, so it depends on the city. If you are living in a metro cities, the cost will be more. Your remuneration is according to that. Productivity of the concerned employees. So when you join the companies, you will know. So this is this is also very most important part, and many of the companies it's part of your salary. It is based on the they do the yearly or quarterly or monthly performance appraisal. They check your performance, how you are doing. Based on your performance, there would be a variable pay that would be added to your total remuneration. Capacity of the firm to pay, and second one, capacity of the firm to pay in the sense how much business they are making. Based on all together, the remuneration will be decided. And when it is on such a basis, efficiency and the morale of the employees will be very high, and it will help the organization. Centralization. Centralization is like when you are doing certain work, how much centralization you want to do, or how much decentralization. What is decentralization is, for example, centralization. If the centralization is more, then only certain central authorities is able to take care of those work. All others, they are not authorized to do that. When you do decentralized, when you give the authority to subordinates, okay, even they can carry out the work. The centralization or decentralization should be in appropriate way. It should be balanced, okay, in order to have a maximum optimum utilization of all the resources. So centralization and decentralization should be done in such a way that there is a optimal utilization of the resources. A scalar chain means the hierarchy of authority from the highest executive to the lowest one for the purpose of communication. It states superior subordinate relationship and authority of superiors in relation to subordinates at various levels. Scalar chain means what? How the what is the hierarchy of authority? In the military structure, you will see very clear. So it is a authority will flow from top to bottom. Means the higher in the rank will have the more authority, and that is the scalar chain. Order, to put the things in order needs effort. Okay, disorder does not need any effort. It evolves by itself. Management should obtain order lines in work through suitable organization of man and material. The principle of right place for the everything and for every man should be observed by the management. To observe this principle, there is a need for a scientific selection, selection of component of personnel, correct assignment of duties to personnel, and good organization. Order is what? Maintaining the proper scientific selection of the personnel, the training, proper assignment of the work, proper monitoring of the work. So that will keep everything in order. If there is any disorder, then it is a all mess and it reduces the productivity. Equity is the most important thing. It means equality of fair treatment. Equity results from the combination of kindness and justice. Okay? Management should treat all the employees with the equality. Okay, there should not be any kind of a relation based on the prejudices. Okay, prejudices is something like you like somebody, you don't like somebody, or you favor some of the people. It should not be based on that. It should be the management should treat all the employees equally. That is the equity. Stability of tenure of personnel. So stability of tenure of personnel in current scenario, we call it as attrition. Okay, attrition rate. What is the attrition rate? Attrition rate is how many people are leaving the organization. So every organization, they try to keep the attrition rate low. Okay, because they don't want to lose the well-trained, knowledgeable people to leave the organization. That is a loss for the organization, and it is a profit for the competitor. So work environment should be provided. Workers should be given a sense of job security. Okay, when you give the sense of job security, and that is the sole work of the managers and the management. When there is a sense of job security, then there is a sense of belongingness, right? Excuse me. When there is sense of belongingness, the productivity of every employee is moral. He will be highly motivated to do the work. It will benefit the organization. Initiative. Initiative is like we should allow every employee to take initiative. Okay. One of the thing which was proposed by Fayol in administrative management, each and every employee should be able to take an initiative. Based on his initiative, he can come up with some new idea that will help the organization. Means the management should be such that it should allow every employee to take every worker to take the initiative on any aspects of the activity which will help the organization. Esprit de corps. So this is the it is the spirit, right? This means the spirit. Union is the strength. The management should create the team spirit among the employees. So by having a good spirit in the team, we can achieve better results. And how we can create the high spirits? There is no one way to do that. It is like having a different kinds of good things, good behavior. Okay, whatever incentives, the way people are treated, that is equally, equity, things like that. That will bring in the high spirits in the team. Contributions and limitations of management and of administrative management. So we will take up this in the next class. And before we close, just I want to talk about one thing. I hope